Perfect. Well, hello everybody. It's a pleasure to meet you virtually. Today, I'm going to be talking about mobility and me, taking a look at our interactions with mobility from the past, staring to the future a little bit, and then sharing some thoughts about how to be successful in that uncertain future. To introduce myself, my name's Sam Hunt. I'm the Director of Technology at STAR. And you may not have heard of STAR, but we're a global team of product creators. We combine strategy, design, and engineering to create a seamless workflow delivering technology products into automotive and mobility. We're about 750 people. We've been doing this for 12 years, and we're really proud of the work that we do with leading OEMs and Tier 1. And if I'm honest, I would love to spend the next sort of portion of our time together explaining some of the projects and some of the things we've done, the value we've delivered. But the automotive industry is nothing if not secretive. So that work we delivered, that's for clients, and it's their stories to tell. So instead, I wanted to share a little bit about our thinking and share some of the things that really get us excited. Before we go further, I wanted to just set some sort of bounds on the conversation. When I think about the evolving world of HMI, I don't think it's about revolution. I do think it's about evolution and incremental improvements. So we're going to start with that mindset, but also I wanted to say that we're probably not going to be having a conversation around fonts and around pixel alignment. And I wanted to zoom out a couple of clicks and zoom out to our relationships effectively with mobility and what we want and what we expect from them. So as a little bit of structure, spend some time looking backwards, spend some time looking forwards, and share some thoughts around how to be successful. So looking backwards, I've picked 6 mobility HMI innovations that I think are interesting. I'll walk through them quickly, and then we can start to dissect what was it that made some successful and others failures. So we said we would talk about reinventing the wheel. So let's start there. Let's start with the steering wheel. It was about 1898 where the steering wheel became a standard feature within vehicles. It replaced what existed before, which was more of a sort of a rudder system. And what's been amazing over that sort of 130 years of development is how this has evolved from just a simple loop of wood tied to an axle to the control center that it is now for vehicles. It's a surface for banging the horn, it's a compartment for the airbag, it's a control panel for the AV system. It really has become the symbol for driving. Another wheel that didn't fare quite so well was the fifth wheel. This was from an American inventor who identified the user need that sort of cars were getting bigger and parking spaces were getting smaller. It was getting increasingly hard to park. So he created a fifth wheel that sits on the back of a vehicle and swings out of the boot to allow drivers to sort of swing the rear of their vehicle easier into spaces. It was launched as part of Chrysler, and it was seen as actually this could be quite an interesting invention. However, the complexity of taking it in and out of the boot and the amount of boot space it took off meant this never really took on. Invention number 3 was the in-car gramophone. Or the hi-fi, the highway hi-fi. So straight away they get points for the pun. Again, they identified a user need. And in this case, the user need was saving a driver from commercials on commercial radio. This one didn't last particularly well. While working and testing in production, it struggled with bumpy roads, it struggled with the cost of discs needed to make this successful, and was eventually phased out. A couple more that I think are super interesting as major innovations that change our way in our experience of vehicles was the Haynes manual. So the first Haynes manual was created by a 17-year-old John Haynes. He was skiving PE to spend time working on this manual. He was working on a description of the Triumph. He sold 200 of them, and now this is a publishing dynasty with 1,700 titles, 24 languages, 85 countries, and it's digitizing, and it's I think it meets this need of helping people to understand and to feel connected to their vehicles. Another mobility innovation, this time, which also feels like it was created by a teenage boy, but in this case wasn't. This was created by BMW, was a flamethrower attached to vehicles in South Africa. The intention here was for drivers to be able to defend themselves against people that are looking to carjack. Staggeringly, this did make it to production, and this is legal in South Africa, although the UN described this as a weapon of mass torture. Another innovation that comes from defence was this with GPS. GPS that's I think of the recent inventions had the biggest impact on our experience with mobility. Now, I suspect if we did a poll now and we asked everyone on the line which were the ones that were the successes and which were the failures, this would be a really easy thing to do. With hindsight, this is easy. It's easy to see that the Haynes manual and that GPS solved a real need, that they integrated into the driving experience, and they evolved with the technology of the time. But the ones I'm much more interested in are the failures, because those failures, they were probably created by intelligent inventors. They had good intentions at heart. They made it into production, which means they were the best ideas. Think about the ones that didn't quite get there. And so at the time, if you've got these intelligent, well-meaning inventors creating something, yet it fails, are we any different now? How can we be sure that the HMI inventions that we're putting forward are going to be successful? Now, I have a hypothesis that looking to the future, this is going to get much harder. We get asked a lot to think about the future of mobility, to create stories, to help people imagine what this future is like. And it's really tough because what constitutes mobility and people's relationships with mobility, I think is really changing and really evolving. So we tend to tell stories. And if it's okay, I'd like to just run you through one of these stories quickly. So, on a sunny morning in a possible future, our main protagonists, Daisy and her son, are soon to leave their house. Their vehicle awaits them in the driveway, providing them with all the necessary information they need to start their day. She places the dress she would like to wear in the evening in the dedicated compartment in order to get it dry cleaned later. During the ride, Daisy's son resumes the cartoon he started watching at home with sound isolation. This allows Daisy to clearly hear the instructions of her virtual coach while doing her workout optimized for the limited space. Thanks to traffic optimization, the vehicle arrives at the city centre in the blink of an eye. It's a sunny day, and after dropping off her son at school, Daisy leaves her bag in the vehicle and jumps on an on-demand bike included in her vehicle subscription, and finishes the rest of the journey to the office. After a pleasant ride, she picks up her bag from the vehicle, which is waiting at the doorstep of her office. The vehicle then finds a parking spot near to Daisy's work and displays an interactive commercial on its windows. Later in the morning, Daisy can easily call back her vehicle to the entrance of the office building and set it as a private meeting space for her and her colleagues. During the meeting, she can leverage the window as a display for her PowerPoint presentation. In the early afternoon, a notification indicates that the vehicle tyre pressure has dropped and that somebody is on their way to repair it. After work, Daisy is happy to find a delicious meal she ordered and also her dry clean dress. It's possible to directly rate and tip the service from within the vehicle. En route to a party after work, Daisy can relax thanks to the dark mode and the multi-sensual environment created by the vehicle. She can also put on a dress in privacy. And while Daisy's at her party, the car connects to local infrastructure to charge and make sure it's ready to take her home. Similarly, if we jump to a weekend, Daisy's starting to think maybe she would like a new vehicle and starts to browse. She orders a test drive. The vehicle promptly arrives at her doorstep. While inside, Daisy can visualize the car interior, making suggestions that are tailor-made to her taste. After weighing the options, she decides to upgrade the new vehicle, places her order, and she's saving money by taking the refurbished option. Later in the day, Daisy doesn't feel so great and schedules a remote doctor. The appointment takes place within her vehicle, and all the data collected from the vehicle and her devices is used to inform the appointment. As a final chunk, it's a month later, and it's vacation time. When arriving at the airport with her friends, Daisy finds that an RV is already included in the package she's booked, fully equipped with the necessary gear for her trip. Daisy loves driving through the mountains. The signs are translated into a language that she can understand. While driving, there's a sudden collision. The advanced driving assistant kicks in and moves her to safety. And during her trip, Daisy can remotely monitor what her vehicle's doing back in the UK and use that as a profit centre, loaning it out to other people. Finally, as the vacation is now over, Daisy lands at the airport, her car has been cleaned and awaits for her arrival. Now, my suspicion is, as we went through that, there are going to be things where people on the line go, actually, that's quite cool. I'm interested in that. I could really see that working. There are going to be other things in there where you go, no, that's ridiculous. I don't believe it. It'll never happen. We can't provide it. Users don't want it. It's a waste of time. But I think the thing that's really interesting is I suspect none of us have the same view of that. We all have a very different view of that story, and which are the points that could be an exciting future, and which are the points that are a waste of time. And I think it's that broadening of what mobility means and could means that makes this ability to predict what's going to be important for future HMIs much, much harder. So if you think of the smart inventors that were looking at the past, hey, people still got it wrong. And if you imagine where we are now, looking at that broad potential future, I would argue that it's going to be even more challenging to find the right HMI innovations. So I'd like to share 3 things that really help us think about this and help us launch successful HMI innovations and successful mobility products. The first one is it's really important to understand not the specific features or the specific points on a journey, but the holistic needs of a user and the underlying trends. So when I talk about holistic needs, this is stop thinking about touch points, about specific interactions, but start to think about a user's life. What are the things that they're going to use daily? What are the things that are sort of occasional? And what are those exceptional things? But tie them around your brand. And somebody asked a question to Alan about UX being that combination of sales, marketing, brand, and you're absolutely right. It's that holistic value from your brand, rather than just thinking about interaction points that happen at a specific point in time within the vehicle. So yeah, we encourage people to think about holistic needs and not get fixated on specific features, but to understand underlying trends. For us, we think there are 7 underlying trends that are important. The first is this idea that my personal vehicle is a evolving product. So it's adaptive, it's self-sufficient, it sort of maps to needs. I think, and this is an idea that's increasingly coming from software, the idea that we release a vehicle and that's that. I think is changing slowly, and I think that the industry is waking up to the ability to adapt and evolve. The second trend that we think is important is the vehicle is a living space. So not just a way to get from A to B, but a place where you might actually want to stay or spend time in different orientations. We think the vehicle is a wellness partner. If you look at the average time that people spend in driving, that's a significant portion of people's lives. So making sure that people are happy, healthy, connected during that time, we think is a key role that vehicles could play in the future of mobility. The next is we see vehicles as a service platform. So somewhere where you can accept and receive and interact with different services, whether it's food, parcels, delivery, or sort of services like sort of services, so insurance and renting. And we think that there's an option for that all to come together through the vehicle. It could be a source of profit. So instead of an initial outlay and then a depreciating asset, can we think about the lifetime cost of vehicles differently? We start to factor in the vehicle as a profit source. And yeah, hey, it's still a vehicle. It's still got an important role to play in mobility. But we think it's important to see cars or vehicles as a step in the chain. So something that is one of a number of multimodal experiences. And finally, as we become increasingly electrified and increasingly autonomous, we don't see vehicles as a sort of sole personal object, but also as something that has a community role because of its interactions with infrastructure, with energy, sustainability, the ability to feed back into the grid, both energy, but also information about the network. So thing one, when looking to the future and trying to come up with new HMI experiences and interactions, we think it's really important to think about not so much specific touch points or specific ideas, but what are the underlying trends and do they match holistically with my brand? The second thing that we think is really important is when you think about the gramophone from the start is it was okay for the technology at the time, but it didn't evolve successfully. So being clear about the future direction of the enabling technologies is really important as we make HMI decisions. We could talk about this for ages, but I'll just pick three things that are clearly important. The first is the evolution of in-car screens. To my mind, there seems to be two forces going on here. One is the let's screenify everything force, and the other force is let's minimize everything and really start to go back to something that feels a little more analog. I just picked some examples here from vehicle shows over the recent years, Sony from CES with that long, broad display. I think this is a lovely concept from Volvo, the concept where you've got the display for the passenger available, but also you can flip and hide back inside the dashboard. So if you want a clean, clear, no screen display, that's an option as well. Or the Porsche Taycan, who's again getting this sort of horizontality and this stretch of displays. I think this is a really nice, elegant layout of that. Apart from the sort of dimensions of screens, I guess the other thing that's important to stay on top of it is the evolution in technology. So screens are getting lighter, cheaper, brighter, lower energy, but also we're starting to see more see-through displays. Audi shared this lovely concept. And also Bosch, this one perhaps is a little bit too niche as a use case, but it's an interesting idea of the role that see-through screens or opaque screens could play. Bosch, we're also looking at 3D screens, so making certain parts of a graphic or a display jump out to you. I think it's really important for the instrument cluster. This could create some quite different experiences. Finally, heads-up displays, so putting more overlays and more projection onto the front rear mirror, and using more augmented reality type features to again apply overlays into the real world and make it easier for drivers to understand. And if you haven't come across this one, it's really worth a Google. So Xiaomi, the Chinese phone manufacturer, have tied up with Betsoon and released this character. It's a sort of hologram that sits on the inside of the dash. There's a voice assistant and the synchronization between the voice assistant and the hologram to create this experience of talking to an avatar. Third area that I think is really sort of interesting in technology at the moment is this idea of the interactive interior. So moving away to the screens and starting to look at the physicality of the vehicle. So in this BMW concept, you can see the little red triangles on the dash. So these are physical bits of plastic that move up and down to indicate direction and give extra clues to the driver around the driving experience. embedded electronics, so electronics not necessarily on glass or plastic screens, but embedded into the trim of the vehicle. There's some great examples from from aviation, embedding electronics behind plastics, but also starting to see some really classy things doing it behind cork and behind wood. Haptic technologies, so bringing that reassuring click of a button into the digital world. 3D sound, wrapping the passenger and the driver sort of almost like, yeah, it's a hug from sound, if you like. So we can start to position sounds within different spaces in the vehicle. And there's long been a battle over whose OS should you have within the infotainment system. Is it one of the tech giants? Is it one of your own? And I think we're really seeing that evolve at the moment. So the next question is, whose assistant should you have? Is it your own voice? Is it an adaptation of somebody else's? So as well as looking at holistic experiences and the key underlying trends, we think it's important to keep on top of enabling technologies, understand what's in place and what's likely to come soon. But the third idea, and this is the idea that I think for us is the most important, is the idea that I think can help all OEMs and tier ones to be more successful when it comes to new HMI innovations. And the first is to iterate like a software company. So when we look at those innovations from the past, the ones that failed, again, they were created by well-meaning people that assumed they would succeed. And then you look at the complexity of the future. I think the real danger here is that we can assume that we know, and we can kid ourselves from research and from intuition that we've got this right and go all in some expensive big bets. I think to be successful, we really need to avoid that temptation and focus on how can we make many, many cheap bets? What's the smallest way that we can use to test a feature, an idea, a new innovation, and do that at scale? And once we've done that, use that evidence to inform what the future roadmap should be. And then the second point is to increasingly work hard to decouple cycle times between vehicle production and HMI features, because we still have this mindset in automotive around funding is tied to vehicles. We will deliver vehicles with this set of features, and once they're released, that's that. We don't think about an evolving roadmap of skills and features and products as the world of software does. And I know it's hard in automotive. We have vehicles, we have supply chains, and we have physical things, but it does feel somewhat ironic while the rest of the world are talking about this MVP approach and iteration. The image that they use as the bad example is don't be like automotive manufacturers. Don't think about vehicles. Instead, think about software, think about roadmaps, and think about releases. So I hope that was useful. From our perspective, it really is a fascinating time. There's so much that could be done. And I think our only advice would be, let's not assume we know it all, and let's be as smart as we can about understanding needs, exploring enabling technologies, and making many small bets. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Sam. We have a couple of comments and questions in, so let's get started right away. The first two I would maybe put together. They concern the question of personal vehicle versus shared vehicle. The first one starts with a comment. The introduction of shared mobility was brought with the promise of reduced congestion due to less people owning cars, and cars being used more and spending less time parking in cities. How does this fit into the increased use you are proposing with shifting a more private life into the car itself? So making the car basically more personalized or to a personalized need when it would maybe be shared with others. And the second question is, so why should a vehicle still be a personal one rather than a shared one?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. Because I sort of feel that there's two opposing forces. One is it's the sort of cult of me and the cult of personality and ownership. And then you've got this other sort of force, which is the commons and shared, and we're all in it together. And I think the future is probably both. So when we're talking about personalization in vehicles, I think it needs to be adaptive. So this may be the same chassis, same set of wheels, but sometimes it is your vehicle, it is personal, and it has your settings and your desires. And at other times it's a piece of the commons, it's adaptive, and it's open to many more people. So I, for the purpose of time, I only told a sort of personal journey, but I really think you're going to have both of those forces coming together into single vehicles.
Thank you. Then the next question is about in-car media technology. We will get big screens, tactile feedback, 5.1 sound, etc. Would you have an idea if and how media content will change in future when talking about mobility, and who will be responsible to produce future content?
I think that's one of the million-dollar questions in the MaaS business models, because everyone talks about, oh, we're going to evolve from being a provider of vehicle to provider of services, provider of content. But there are already so many people that are dominating the content generation landscape. And again, I think we'll see a polarization. So one will be real high quality, sort of beautiful, well-produced content designed for in-vehicle. The other half will be sort of kids on TikTok showing videos of their mates and pinging it to each other's cars. So I think the content producers will be a mix of individuals and, again, sort of high experienced people that produce Netflix style content. And I think if OEMs feel they have a role to play there, they need to move very quickly, because I think in both of those there is a network effect, and it's a network effect that those other two communities already have.
Thank you, great. Then moving on to the next comment and question. You described very well what is going on with the car manufacturer. Do you have a vision of how the reality of the technology will change inside the vehicle?
Yeah. From my specific experience, I spend a lot of time thinking about companion applications and the connected car platforms that connect to vehicles. And if you just look at what's happened in that space over the last 3 years, you've got this real ability to create, actually, as Alan said, so personalized and predictive type experiences. So that would be, I think, theme one around the technology would be around personalization and predictive. And then I think the second will be around increasing connectivity, reliability. And then the third, again, as Alan said earlier, is a better understanding and managing of cyber risk. I think these would be the three trends that affect at least the software side of automotive technology for the next few years.
Thank you very much. The next question is, more content and bigger displays mean more distraction. So how can we find a balance?
You're totally right. And I think the balance has to be temporal. So it needs to be built around activity. So we understand that you're driving, great. You may have a big screen there, but let's keep most of it dark, and let's keep the focus on the specific information that the users need. And I think this is a real challenge for designers. The challenge is to be quite, how do you say, sort of quite brutal on ourselves, and to limit ourselves and not get too excited when we're in those focused driving moments. But then perhaps when it's being more of a living space and more of a personal space, that's the time to enjoy the screen real estate and to create sort of bold bits of content.
Good, thank you. The next question we have in is, will tech companies dictate HMI as well as the overall design of the car more, and OEMs will just do contract manufacturing?
I think tech companies would like to. If you look at most tech companies, there's two things you really want. The first thing is you want data, and the second thing is you want to own the customer. You want to feel that they're within your brand ecosystem. And so far with things like Android Auto and things like that, people are doing quite well at owning the data. But I think you will see tech companies try and push into owning more of the interface. And then it's going to be a really tough choice for automotive manufacturers to say, where do we want to be in that value chain? Are we a contracts engineering company and we can build stuff more efficiently and we can manage risk and contracts better than anybody else? Or are we a brand? And as a brand, we need to have, that feeling needs to be us.
Thank you. The next question is, do you have an example for a small bet MVP?
Yeah. So my favorite small bet MVPs at the moment are adverts. So it's, apart from before the time of coronavirus, the price for Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads was incredibly cheap. So creating an advert for a feature and just seeing how many people click through, see how many people are interested in that feature. Super cheap because you don't have to build the feature. You just have to create a little bit of content that goes, would you be interested in this? And then you can start to A/B test different features and different ideas long before you need to cut any code or talk to any suppliers.
I think, Leonie, are you still on?
I'm still here. Yeah, I've just was just wondering. I can't hear Sam at the moment. I don't know if I'm cut off or if he's cut off. Sam, are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you again now. Yeah, there was a bit of a pause. Would you mind maybe
Sorry.
going back to your last answer?
Yes, so the question was around, could you give an example of a small bet?
Yes, thank you.
And my favorite small bet at the moment are adverts. So taking out adverts on Facebook or LinkedIn to say, would you be interested in this feature? It just describes what the feature does, maybe has some cool visual. But we don't need to build the feature in order to create that advert. And the nice thing with that is you can create a number of different adverts for different features described in different ways and see what people are interested in, see what starts to get click-throughs and starts to get traction with different audiences. And that's a much, much, much cheaper way of experimenting and trying small bets than it is, say, building a prototype or talking to vendors.
And again, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if this is on my end. I can't hear Sam right now.
No, I think he was finished. It was done with answering the question.
Okay, I'm sorry. Great, thank you very much then. Then let's maybe take one more question. How do you think screen technology changes will impact future HMI? And yeah, let's start with that one.
I think it means as designers, we have to make more choices. We have to make more choices about how we want to use different screen technologies in real estate. So for example, as the question earlier said, to not be distracting, but to be informing, and at other times to be distracting and entertaining. So we have to make choices about how to use different technologies in real estate when.
I'm sorry, I don't know again if it's me, Tony. I would think I would hand over to you because I have seemed to be cut off from the audio at the moment.
Okay, no worries. I heard it loud and clear, Sam, so no worries. I got the answer of the question.
Thank you.
Leonie, maybe once back to you. Do you have any questions left in the panel?
That was the last question as of now, I believe. So if there are any more questions that come in the course of the day or to our audience, if there is anything that you would like to follow up on, you can also keep sending the questions in and we're happy to pass them on to Sam and we can follow up on those later.
All right. Well, thanks, Leonie, and thanks, Sam, again for the presentation and answering all the questions. As Leonie said, if there are any questions left, I think there is one last question, so that just come up, so I'll read it out. Do you expect any changes for the raw material used in the interior?
I'll be totally honest, this is not an area I know that much about as being a software technology guy, but I think we will see evolution, but I think that evolution is likely to start in the luxury and high-end space before it trickles down to the mass market. But yeah, I think we will see more material science, more material innovation. That said, that's probably an area where I'm not an expert.